So Mark, when it comes down to talent, I know this is something that both you and I are passionate about, which is finding talent in organizations, especially young talent, and watching and helping those people grow. How does this work in Formula One? Have we got some examples of sort of young, diverse talent coming through in the Formula One space?
Well, you know, Formula One teams are predominantly packed full of technical staff, and we're not competing against other Formula One teams to recruit talent. We're competing against the world of industry. We're competing against Airbus and Boeing and Jaguar Land Rover and BMW. And how do we recruit the best talent? We want the brightest brains. Well, we've done this in a number of different ways. One is through programs aimed at school children, Formula One in schools, trying to get children aged 8 to 14 interested in the STEM subjects, and that engineering can be cool and interesting and exciting. And quite frankly, Formula One engineering is pretty cool and interesting and exciting. So really engaging with the Formula One in schools program, then with Formula student undergraduates, talking to undergraduates in terms of the engineering topics, exciting them about the prospect of coming to work in an industry that they might never have considered working in. And in the book, I talk about interviewing Holly Chapman on my podcast. Holly Chapman is a powertrain engineer at Mercedes-Benz Formula One. She wasn't even interested in Formula One, only started following it because her stepfather kind of sat down with her on a Sunday afternoon and used to watch the races. And so she, having decided to follow engineering, then found herself applying for an internship at the Mercedes Formula One team. She got that internship. She then subsequently became a full-time employee at Mercedes-Benz. And then fast forward just a few years, and she was head of powertrain so that's the engines. So she was responsible for the engines in the back of the Mercedes-Benz Formula One cars. And she told me that at the Austrian Grand Prix in 2020, middle of the pandemic, they won the race, and immediately after the race, Toto Wolff, chief executive, tapped her on the shoulder and said, "You're representing the team on the podium today." And so she suddenly found herself on the podium with Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, and quite frankly, standing in front of 120 million people watching a Formula One race, including her parents, who were, I think, shocked to see Holly on TV. And I tell that story because she said it made her realise she works for the best company, not just in our industry, best company in the world. She's an advocate of the business. It also sent a really powerful message to the entire workforce about the fact that the management here recognise top talent, celebrate top talent, recognise that each person makes a critical contribution to the team. And then how attractive is that story to talent who would consider coming into Formula One? They made Mercedes a team that you would want to work for. And so this then becomes a factor in not just retaining talent, but in recruiting the best talent, because people aspire to come and work for you because they know the degree to which your organisation truly values attracting the best people. And so it becomes a virtuous upward cycle.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think, when we think about sort of attracting talent, because I know some organizations are quite good at attracting talent, right? But you've got to be able to nurture it as well, right? So creating the environment where talent can excel and maximize their potential is really key. And even with our clients, we've seen a number of techniques we use with our clients. We've seen new leaders emerge, and there's nothing more satisfying than seeing, a guy who was sat in operations, and people sort of pulled him out and went, "Oh, I think he's got some potential," and just see him over 90 days emerge into this new leader, who then went on to help scale that across the organization. It's just fascinating to watch. But it's the same kind of thing. It's like, no one managed a seedling to make it grow, right? But what you do is you give it sunlight, and you give it water, and you give it nutrients, and all those kind of things. You create an environment around it where that seedling can grow into a sapling. The other thing I think you've been very hot on is around diversity, and I love the book by Matthew Syed on Rebel Ideas, which talks about demographic diversity, but also cognitive diversity, that having one or either alone is not enough, that you have to have them combined. And that diversity of thinking and people and backgrounds is really key. And I know when you think about Formula One, you've got to bring a group of minds together, right, with all different perspectives and views on things to solve a really complex problem. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
So you're absolutely right. Diversity of thought, different perspectives, people bringing the best of themselves. Formula One teams 25 years ago were basically a bunch of, quite frankly, white European guys traveling around the world going car racing. And so there was lots of groupthink going on and not much in the way of different strategies or different ideas or innovation. And now today we employ the best people in the world, multiple nationalities in every team, men and women, indeed boys and girls in terms of recruits coming into the teams. I think in 2020 we reached 40% of all the principal race strategists in Formula One. These are the data scientists that we employ. 40% of them were women. And as we've seen greater gender diversity, greater inclusion in the workforce, we see much more resilient, powerful, adaptive, innovative teams being created. And just one final point, I want to go back to something you mentioned, Adrian, and that is this idea of unlocking leaders within your organisation. David Coulthard, who's an ex-Formula One driver I do a lot of work with, he talks very passionately about his experience of working in Formula One teams where we load up young people with responsibility and they thrive on it. And so responsibility comes not with age, not with the title on your business card, but with your inherent capability as a member of the team. And so you see leaders flourish, and it is an incredibly rich and powerful experience to do that. And I have to say, in my own life, I've seen what happens when young talented people go to work for organizations where they are suppressed, where they're not allowed to thrive, to lead, to contribute meaningfully. So it's such an important topic, this, in terms of recruiting the best talent and then giving the best talent the opportunity to become the best version of themselves.
For more information, please visit sullivanstanley.com/future business formula.